We open things up over here in the July-August turn. One exciting little event. Our commander of the Swedish army got the pox. May mean he dies, may means he doesn't. Could just suffer for a while. So we got the final Swedish marshal. It's coming to the point where I'm not sure they can have a commander-in-chief. If a commander-in-chief gets elected right now, it'll be him. And he'll get recalled and the general will take over that army. But beyond that, and then he can come back and take command. But he has to go to Sweden to be invested with his little baton or whatever. Okay, let's look at... There's really not much connection between the naval and the land right now, except for this action going on right here. The Russians dispatched one of their galley fleets back to recover after having handed off the escort duties. But the one that has them isn't in too much better shape, honestly. Swedes are returning back from their duties. Russian fleet heading down to Riga so that it can head over to Stralsund. And then this fleet actually doesn't have any orders. There weren't any that I could assign to it that were of any value. I could have, I guess, kept drawing, but I don't like to do that. I just had this one in play, but I wanted to dislodge the naval support there. Unfortunately, the siege is taking place already. It's been invested, and we've got that siege resistance value of 0. So I've got to break the siege again to succeed, to make it so that having the Navy break things up does me any good. All right. Sailing ships have been having no success. They had perfect chances to catch the wind, so they haven't been moving there. Yeah, that's correct. Over here, the Swedes made probably too early of an attack. I miscalculated. I was on the second impulse, and I'm often having this problem. The Russians managed to move to the approach, and I'm not sure I made it to lodgment legally last time. I looked at the numbers for it. It required a 13 or more, and I think I only had a +1, so I don't see how I could have gotten there. So I think I probably was in approach and thought, oh, it's the end of the chart, it's a 10. Anyway, it ended up being no great deal. It wouldn't have made a big difference either way. I wasn't doing an escalade. So we got to the approach here. The Swedes kind of panicked and charged in, fought a battle, lost, which is what is likely to happen. However, they got very lucky results with the casualties, capturing Lacy, the captain general, and the marshal, which is a pretty serious effect there. That's going to hinder the Russian advances somewhat. They have a decent commander in charge, no question. But he's not Lacy. Lacy's very good. Not only does he have a 5 leadership, which is better than I think anybody else in the game, but he also has this coordination ability where he can move more than just his own thing at once, which may not be a huge effect, but every now and then it really does have a factor in terms of the tactical situation. But where it really has an importance is when you have a campaign. He's the unit. His being able to command that allows him to have these 2 units in play at once that are operating under the campaign, so he can roll and move them together, which is a big deal towards actually prosecuting a siege properly, because you want that covering force and the regular force. So just in case there's an attack, it doesn't break the siege immediately. All right, on to naval activity dithers along after 3 impulses here. Russians finally making it to Riga where they can start heading to Stralsund, but they've taken some damage coming through these straits. The Swedes succeeded. Well, let's start off. First of all, I forgot some things in the last round. Just minor stuff. For example, I forgot to start investing this, and I did. He's got a significant defensive bonus because of the water that he's got on there. So I don't think he's going to surrender. So I decide, well, okay, I start investing it. He loses one of his ops points assigned to that, which is making it less and less likely he's going to capture it. He's out of supply, so his artillery can't be used for this. over here, the Russians would win, essentially, if the Swedes don't drive them off. So the Swedes make another attack. They should have not attacked last round. Attacking this round or the next impulse 4 means that the Russians wouldn't be able to get the siege roll because they'd have to reset it up. So last round was a waste because the Russians could have come back. But the Swedes succeed here, and succeed rather heavily. You might wonder why. Actually, the modifiers were slightly in favor of the Russians. Size is still in favor of the Russians, but with one major difference. Without Lacy, they can't use their size. You see, they have 3 wings to the Swedes too, but that gets equalized, and then it becomes a generalship thing. So it goes down to 2-2, and actually Lacy wouldn't have been good enough to get it against this guy, and in fact maybe some of the others that I've lost as well. But anyway, this guy's not sufficiently good. He has to be twice as good to be able to use an extra wing. He doesn't have that extra wing. So what he does have, though, is because he has the reserves, he could take more losses. But 2 really bad Russian die rolls compared to 2 reasonable Swedish ones ended up with 2 losses on the Russians and none on the Swedes. There was no pursuit here. It's hard to get a pursuit, really. I think there was no chance because of the quality of the Russian army. And the Russians have been pushed back. It was a major battle. There were enough strength points and the Swedes were outnumbered. So now we're seeing the prestige is getting awfully close to one another. And now, and part of that's because of 2 points for capturing Lacy before, 2 more Russian generals, 1 more captured and 1 more thrown off the board. They have plenty. They're not all very good, though. I don't know if they've been losing particularly good ones. This guy isn't terribly good. This guy was decent. The Swedes have a real lack of generals. But it's looking like both these campaigns are likely to fail. We do have 1 more turn after this one. You can see each guy has 1 point. Ooh. Yeah, I checked that. I got to remember, because after every battle, this is another point was lost, the unassigned point, because the Swedes because the Russians rolled a bad die roll at the end of the battle. This time they survived that, so they still have their points, but they've got a real issue where they've got to take it next turn or their campaign fails. Now, if both campaigns fail, well, you can see the Swedes are going to be well ahead of the Russians there. The Russians will be back 2 points from where they are. I don't think the Swedes gain those points. I think they gain half. So they might be up a point. Anyway, that is our situation. The Swedes also have the bonus. Yeah, before the leadership ratings were low on the Swedes, so actually they would have been penalized. They were down here with a -1. The faction table means that the Swedes are a little bit more aggressive than they were. There's just so many little factors that can jump in, and you can't reconstruct and fix things after the fact in general. All right, well, we got 1 more round, and the Russians may or may not want to try to set up their siege early. It doesn't really do anything for them to get on the move early at this point, except that they have the numerical advantage right now. And the Swedes, at the very least, have one thing available, some dragoons. They haven't had any auxiliaries they could throw into the battle. The Russians don't have much left either, but they have a priest, which will allow them to boost their quality up from, let's see, they don't like, well, they're just a B on attack. So their quality would go back up to an A. So they have a very good chance of winning that fight. The problem, of course, and you got to kind of keep this in mind, well, do they have another priest in case they fail? Yeah, they got 1 more so they can make an attack next round if they set that up. Or next turn if they set that up. I don't know. All right. And on the last, well, the Swedes made it back partway into their port, but not where they can go into ordinary. The Russians still haven't been able to leave port. Over here, I wanted to make that attack. Well, luck said no. because I have no scouting forces and I wouldn't have been able to find anything helpful to me to move into here. So I had to roll my my leadership or less, and I failed. So that didn't go forward. I did get to the approach stage here, although I'm losing troops holding that siege. But there is some chance of this falling. Not right away. I mean, there's always some chance at the end of the turn, but there's some chance that I'm getting the progress I need there. There isn't a lot of, there's a small, an under garrison force there. But one of the problems is I no longer have that dual command. I can't drag. Well, actually, I'm stacked together, so I can consolidate command and move in together. So that's not really as big a deal. The big deal is being able to spread out and gather your forces together. That's what Lacy's good at because of his ranged command abilities. This guy's actually able to command the column, I believe. I have to look at it. But it affects his subordination ratings. But it's okay. All right. So now we go to treat the admin side. As we push into August, well, the pox didn't get cured, but he's not dead yet. And this almost actually surrendered. It was one die pip away from surrendering, but that didn't happen. I'm not sure, look at the sequence of play, whether or not they get another shot at it, essentially, at the end of turn surrender. So what they're going to be looking at here, yeah, besieged fortification surrender happens down here, whereas the campaign success and failure, that's going to be judged here, because this is when it's not going to have any OPs left next turn. So I have to take it through the approach and the regular siege factors. It's not going to just surrender on me before the campaign fails. Now, when the campaign fails, I'm not entirely sure if I have to withdraw. This town may surrender, but I've lost my campaign. The town surrendered too late to be worth it, if that's the case. I'm not sure if that is how it works, though. And that's about it. Over on the naval side, we have the Russians launched another galley fleet. They're planning on doing a handoff order here. Now, they could have taken another escort order, but they'd have to wait a turn, which means this fleet, I want to bring it back. It's not in good shape. Detachment B here, it's going to hit its damage levels very soon where it can start losing ships. And the Swedes lost ships landing in Stockholm. They're down, you know, this was a four-sail galley fleet. It's now down to 2. They've actually got a pretty good galley squadron together. I'm not sure why I'm not launching one. I think I should be. All right, I'll set another squadron up because I've got an order I want to do to support Lacy's major campaign. I don't feel like this is that big a deal, and having an extra ship in there will help actually. Maybe be able to drive them off and turn the tide the other way. So we enter the first impulse here of August. Russian fleet finally makes it out of Riga. They've still got a long way to go and a lot of trouble. The galleys are beginning to move into place for a confrontation over there. Now, over here. We're still at the approach, and they actually took a penalty there, losing some additional an ops point that they don't have. Over here, the Swedes were beaten back by the Russians, but now here's the problem. And it's an area where the rules are kind of difficult to discern, and I'm not sure I'm getting it right. So the Russians have a blockade here. I could not take that additional unit with me. I can't subordinate anything because I don't have a Grand Army in the game. This game doesn't come with one. So that's why I haven't really been subordinating things. I can't do it. But the way the sieges work, a simple blockade does not allow you to do anything. You have to invest it. Well, the Swedes have more value, more more operations available to them, which means they got to choose the initiative, so they made the Russians go first. The Russians are here. If they set up a siege, if they invest the city, and they're attacked, as far as I can tell, that breaks the siege immediately. It drops it back down to a blockade. If you don't have a screening force, you cannot defend yourself against an opposing force, which kind of means the Russians are going to fail here. They win a battle, they do damage, unless the Swedes get convinced that our army cannot afford to make an attack. Well, that's not really the case. Losses were approximately equal. Both took four quality losses. There's just no hope here. The Russians have no chance of taking this without a leader who can coordinate the forces, which means the loss of Lacy was absolutely devastating to them. Now he's over here, and next quarterly turn, maybe we can buy him back. We've got a pile of Swedish generals and a marshal, so we should be able to afford him. But as of right now, this year is pretty much, the campaigning is going to be ineffectual. Now I can take this and swing down here and maybe threaten Abo. I don't think I have enough time to do that. But if I manage that, that puts the Swedes in an interesting position, because this becomes much, much harder to support if I'm running a campaign. You know, if I don't have anywhere to fall back on. That begins to threaten the army with actually being destroyed. Problem? Well, the problem still is there's two big forces on the map. Nothing else can really compete with them. In fact, they're not quite overrunnable, but they're close, I think. I know 6-1 is the overrun with field works. I don't know. It may be less than that if it's not. So these little columns aren't really a factor. The Russians have a bunch of them. They enable them to go out and capture other territory, but what they don't allow them to do is to take this location. And without a siege roll, they're not going to get it. It's that simple. And they won't get a siege roll unless they can be invested. And they can keep investing it and try to force the Swedes to wipe themselves out on it. That's their only real hope. I don't think that's going to work very well. But we'll do what we can to see if we can. Maybe the Swedes will damage themselves enough on the attacks. The problem is the Swedes are actually probably better on attack, because the Russians, while they don't get their advantage, their B+ or whatever, that they get for defending, they have priests. They can boost themselves up anyway, and the Swedes are weakened on defense. On the third impulse here, the Swedes have decided to let the Russians stay there for one round. There's a slight risk to that, but not too significant. Part because I just don't want to fight a battle, but I also don't want to weaken my forces. The Russians have to take an attrition roll each turn, so it's weakening them. The Swedes would rather not. They think they're pretty safe and would rather not weaken their own forces while the Russians are degenerating. I had made a mistake before. This resistance value should never have been 0. It's a 3. I had forgotten there's a depot under that pile, which adds, you'd think 3, but yeah, 3. So that's what worked out. The galley is creeping closer and closer. This guy's here. Now he doesn't have a handoff order, and in fact there aren't any counters for them. There's the rendezvous order. He's got to wait until he's assigned one. That requires a strategy check. I'd have to find my fleet leader. He's cruising the Baltic right now. That's all a bunch of complexity there, which in the end what I really want to do is I can just assign a new escort mission to that fleet instead. That's easier. And then this guy who's been extending his can withdraw from it. Over here, the Russians didn't get anywhere in the south. The Swedes again decided not to attack. They're going to attack once in this final impulse just to break the chance of an automatic surrender. But over here, the Russians got very, very lucky. They got in the approach. They got to a lodgment. They have an aggressive leader, so they can immediately take that to a no-breach escalade. But in order to get to a lodgment, they had to roll a natural 9, because they don't have any modifiers. That means they get to roll on the special table. They ended up getting a guile result, a coup. This could just end up with this citadel surrendering at this point, but it didn't. Instead, they were kind of let in, which meant they roll on this table. It's no breach, so it was a level 2. It goes up to a level 3. They get +2 to the die roll for a coup. The lead combat element was the same. They ended up with this 4-4S. Now, this is kind of weird how the strength points are handled in this. That's a percentage multiplied by 10. That's the percentage of losses. So 40% losses. There were 5 strength points for the Russian infantry, or the Russian besieger. 40% losses means he loses 2. But this isn't 2 CE levels in this case. In an escalade, you lose units, full units. So 2 units have been wiped out of here. The Swedes didn't lose anything, but they got an S, which is a surrender result. So they roll on the surrender table. They got honors of war, and they were withdrawn back to here. And now the Swedes have to make the attack to break this up. The Russians can't move any further forces in there, from what I can tell by the rules. You're only allowed to have 1 command operating in the order, and I can't subordinate units or anything like that under the conditions that I have right now without Lacey. So this looks very unlikely, but at least I've succeeded in taking one of my 2, which should kind of balance things out a little bit. Fleet's coming ever closer to engaging, but not quite. Those are galleys, so they're very slow. They only got 2 movement points. Over here, the Russians turned into a garrison, so that they have a unit available to get more units into this play area here to try to do something with it. The Swedes broke the blockade, broke the siege, but they lost the battle. Now, that doesn't really hurt. With no captain generals or anything. Both sides lost 2 generals. We have another of the Swedes over there. I've got to replace generals. The Swedes are down to only three officers left, all just general quality. The Russians probably have another, well, I see another marshal up there, but we'll randomize who that is, and then we'll go to the admin phase, see what happens. Ooh, forgot to check the post-battle supply. The Russians might have lost another one. They lost a depot here. They can't lose a supply. Okay, they have no ops points left. So yeah, that's pretty much where we are. 1 failed campaign, 1 successful one. I think this blockade's going to have to be lifted. And as we move down here into the August-September turn, not a lot. The fleet's taking their places, the repairs, etc. 1 new mission, maybe? I thought I commissioned a new mission, but it doesn't look like it. Yeah, I was thinking about commissioning a Russian mission. I drew 2 counters for a mission, for an order for the mission. Not that I could assign it right away. I have to wait until the next turn to do that. And I didn't see anything I really wanted. I probably should launch them anyway, though. I've got a nice little squadron here. We'll set out, and we need a commander for that. I just don't want to waste another turn not getting orders. So let's see. And obviously I could keep drawing, but I don't know. Something bothers me about that, and I don't want to go into that too much. I only have 1 admiral, so he's in charge, and we're running kind of low on appropriate escorts. I'll turn this into a fleet auxiliary. That'll help. All right, but over here on the land side, well, I mean, the blockade doesn't go away, but it doesn't do anything, right? Next turn, because the mission failed, neither side has an operation in play. The Russians obviously didn't have the points to commit to one, so the Swedes decided not to commit to a defensive one. They too are willing to await some differences. I gotta shift some forces actually, and maybe recover some. I doubt there's anything that can. But that allows the Swedes to, take a pass and get some more points, maybe recover some troops over the next turn, which will be kind of nice. Other than that, nothing really happening. The Russians are going to get to move. They get to pull back to the nearest sort of place. I don't know if they are allowed to even stay here without a campaign, but I'm going to let them. They have a depot there. I mean, that should mean something. They may have to pull back to the nearest fortification, which is way back here, and that just seems like too big a penalty for them. Otherwise, we're pretty much done with this turn, and we'll move on. I think I'll fit this next turn onto the same video and do the fall on the next one. Because we get the quarterly turn. Well, the game might end on the quarterly turn. That's the problem. So I think we should load this one up.